Council project was a 2-year, $3 million pilot program aimed at providing outreach, education, and legal aid to low-income renters in Davidson County. The program, in its current iteration, is a contract partnership among Legal Aid Society, the Nashville Hispanic Bar Association, and Metro Nashville Davidson County government. The project was shepherded through Metro Council through the efforts of Councilwoman Zulfat Sarara, who you will hear from later today. The program was initially funded through the American Rescue Plan and is the first of its kind in Middle Tennessee to take a comprehensive approach to providing legal counsel for tenants facing eviction and education to all sectors of our community. The goal of today's gathering is a bit of a report card on just how we're doing. Before I get too deep into the weeds about the why, I do want to clarify a misnomer. While the project is titled the Eviction Right to Counsel Program, there is actually no right to counsel. Instead, what we have is more commonly called universal representation. Universal representation is actually the attempt to offer significant legal services to those persons unable to afford an attorney. The universal representation is an enhanced effort to offer this representation to everyone versus a legal right, like you might have in the public defender's office. Think Miranda rights. Unfortunately, there is no legal right to an attorney in eviction cases. In the criminal law, there is that actual constitutional right. It is simply, while a right to counsel in the eviction context is certainly ideal, that's what we want, it's just simply not where we are today. Our reach is limited by our capacity and our funding. But as you will learn later today in the programming, we are making fantastic strides. The idea of a right to counsel program for tenants first came about in two separate camps, one at Legal Aid Society, where the legal expertise resided, and the other at the United Way in Metro Council, where the potential funding resided. As the pandemic raged in 2019 and 2020, we all began to see the writing on the wall that the already precarious rental housing situation in Nashville was about to get substantially worse. An August 2021 study from the Red Door Collective entitled The Nashville Eviction Report provided the data to really shed light on the frequency and general characteristics of evictions in Davidson County. At Legal Aid Society, Zach Oswald, lead housing practice group attorney, shared with me about a concentrated nationwide effort being led by John Pollack at the National Coalition for a Civil Right to Counsel. Zach urged that we consider joining and pursuing their coalition of more than 100 cities and states who were pursuing a right to counsel in eviction cases. So we did. In doing so, we learned about the Eviction Right to Counsel programs implemented in Texas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Ohio, New York, Colorado, just to name a few. Our takeaway, we also learned the difference between a true right to counsel, which we will discuss later. Our takeaway from our research and involvement with the National Coalition for a Civil Right to Counsel was that Nashville needed an Eviction Right to Counsel program, and that legal aid was poised to lead it, if we only had the funding. In the second camp, Councilwoman Zulfat Sarara was lamenting the affordable housing troubles within her district, and in a chance conversation with Aaron Ackery from the United Way of Greater Nashville, Aaron shared with Zulfat the idea of an eviction right to counsel as one way to help address the issues tenants were facing throughout the pandemic. Zulfat took the idea and ran with it. She commissioned a study by the University Action Research class at Vanderbilt to take a deep dive into the eviction records of Davidson County. Their findings were stark, but not unpredictable. They found that evictions increase the risk of homelessness, it creates long-term residential insecurity, it decreases school outcomes, and it increases emergency room use. In essence, evictions are not just a burden on the tenant and landlord, it's a burden on our city. They found that in Davidson County between 2016 and 2021, 99.8% of plaintiff landlords were represented by an attorney, while less than 1% of the defendant tenants had legal representation in their cases. That less than 1% was legal aid attorney Zach Oswald attempting to represent more than 37,000 tenants facing eviction in Davidson County. The study found that in order to address the eviction crisis, the city needed to fund a holistic, coordinated eviction reduction support system, including lawyers, mediation, and rental assistance. It is from this framework that the Eviction Right to Counsel program emerged. Shepherded by Councilwoman Serrara and supported by Councilman and now Mayor Freddie O'Connell, Councilwoman Sandra Sepulveda, and so many others. Today we are excited to share with you the progress of this pilot project and the results of the independent study commissioned to evaluate the efficacy and the work of the amazing organizations that have come together to form the Eviction Right to Counsel. To share more about their exciting work, I'm going to ask to come forward and welcome Liz Leisherson, Director of the Eviction Right to Counsel program at the Legal Aid Society, and Ann Boatner, Legal Director of the National Hispanic Bar Association.
Thank you very much, Darkenia. My name is Liz. I direct the piece of the Eviction Right to Counsel project that lives at Legal Aid Society. And thank you so much for joining us here today to hear a little bit about what the last 2.5 years have looked like inside the Eviction Right to Counsel program. And to start, you need to know a little bit about the scope of the problem that we're dealing with. Evictions in Nashville have been on the rise ever since the pandemic. It's going up year after year after year. This is an integral part of what we mean when we say affordable housing crisis. It means that last year there were more than 13,000 evictions filed here in Davidson County. That's more than 50 evictions filed every single day the courts were open last year. Each one of those represents a family that is going through one of the hardest times that we can imagine, where the bottom is maybe falling out from underneath them. And for most of them, before this project existed, they didn't have any help. And that's a moment where all of us need help. And here with the coalition, we are so proud to be the ones now who are walking together with these tenants as they are facing this incredibly difficult moment in each of their lives, for each of their families, for their children, and for their homes. Our pilot, like any pilot, is small but mighty. We are not able to assist yet every one of those 13,000 people. But what we have shown over the last 2 years is that this intervention works. What we do makes a difference. Helping a family stay in their home stops homelessness before it starts. It works better, perhaps, than any of us could have imagined. Because what we've seen is that when someone gets a lawyer, 95% of the time, we are able to help them get what they need. That's a success rate that, for me personally, boggles my mind. And I want to tell you a little bit about what this success might look like. I want to tell you a story of a client of mine, who I'm going to call David. David was a little bit older than me, he's maybe in his 40s. He had some pretty serious disabilities. He used a walker, his hands didn't work very well, he couldn't pick things up easily, he lived on disability, and as happens sometimes when you're living on disability checks, something went wrong at the disability office and his check didn't come in. So he fell behind on rent, and his landlord wanted to evict him. The landlord was actually kind of happy to, because David lived in one of those rundown houses that if you're like me, and you're from Nashville, and you drive through a neighborhood, and you look and you think, aha, developers are coming for that one. And they were. So an eviction got filed against David. And honestly, he didn't mind moving. This wasn't a great place for him to live in. It wasn't particularly accessible, and it was falling down around his ears. But he didn't know where he could go. He couldn't pack on his own. He couldn't move. He couldn't drive. What is he supposed to do? And what are we as Nashville going to do to help him to make sure that he doesn't end up on the streets? When we were able to step in, I could articulate what David couldn't about his rights. That his landlord wasn't making the repairs he was entitled to. That he, as a tenant with disabilities, could ask for what he needed, which was extra time to move. We have social workers on our team who were able to direct him to resources he didn't know existed. He thought subsidized housing was just for seniors, and he was too young. We helped him get into new housing, helped him find help moving, got him settled in a place that was cheaper, and understood his rights, and was actually upkept well enough for him to feel safe there. What he needed was time. And that's what 95% success rate can look like. David could have ended up homeless, and instead, we got him settled in a place where he can be healthy and happy and build his life again. Also, what success looks like is money. This program puts money in tenants' pockets when they need it. I'm going to tell you one more story before I hand it over to Anne about what this money can look like. Another client of mine who I'll call Jasmine. Jasmine, young woman, she was a nursing student. She'd just gotten married. And unfortunately, her husband was abusive. She got an order of protection, she filed criminal charges against him, and she told her landlord that she couldn't live safely in the apartment that she and her husband had been in. Landlord agreed. They set a move-out date. She was going to pay a couple $100, cover rent for the rest of the month. So she left. And then the bills started coming in. Actually, you owe us $1,000, $2,000, in the end, almost $5,000. So she called us, and we were able to explain to her landlord that that is not legal in the state of Tennessee, that you cannot charge a domestic violence survivor who cannot safely live in her home anymore and needs to move out. And that burden, that $5,000 bill on the shoulders of a nursing student trying to build her life again, could have set her back for years. We stopped it. And that kind of intervention makes so much difference. And legal aid, we've been working on this for a long time, but we're really lucky now that we've got a lot more help.
So my name is Ann Boatner. I'm the Executive Director of the National Hispanic Bar Association's Eviction Right to Counsel program. And I've only been in this position for a few months. I can't personally take credit for these incredible pilot successes. All of that goes to my predecessor, Julie Iriart, and the incredible team that she was able to put together. But I will gladly talk about it. So the National Hispanic Bar Association was formed in 2019 by two incredible Latina attorneys, Judge Anna Escobar and Ali Dalton, to provide networking space, community to the Latina attorney and legal community in Nashville and Davidson County. And so that's what they did. Starting in 2019, they hosted social events, mixers, happy hours, legal clinics, continuing legal education opportunities, and other community building opportunities. And so it made sense that through that community, when the ERTC coalition was not quite yet in existence, Darkenia looked to the Hispanic Bar to find, perhaps, somebody that could assist and join the coalition to advocate for the needs of Nashville's immigrant communities. And so, allegedly, at a Hispanic bar happy hour, as the story goes, Hispanic bar agreed, was appropriately persuaded to join the coalition. And really changed gears, really. We shifted gears from being a social organization to one that is still doing exciting social and community building work, but is also part of this coalition, so we can provide legal assistance to all of our neighbors in Davidson County. So we incorporated formally as a 501c6 in 2022. Conexión Americas graciously served as our sort of fiscal sponsor, landlord. They gave us office space and also assisted us with some outreach opportunities that we needed assistance with because we were just a tiny team then. And a few months after we officially opened our doors in 2022, we met a family that had recently immigrated from Venezuela. They lived in a duplex in Hermitage. It was in poor condition. There were rodents, there was trash in the lawn that the landlord refused to clean up. And they came to us to see if there was anything they could do. So we walked them through the process of making a report to codes. And the owner was cited with 6 violations of 6 codes violations. And then the owner retaliated by bringing an eviction against our clients and drumming up $7,000, half of it which were legal charges that made no sense. And so we countersued. And so we countersued that landlord for not holding up his end of the bargain by maintaining appropriate living conditions in the home. And we were able to get the case dismissed, everything resolved, and our clients were able to walk away owing absolutely nothing. And our clients weren't US citizens, so they wouldn't have been eligible to receive assistance through legal aid. And that's why we joined this coalition. We joined this coalition to fill that gap so that low and middle income residents of Davidson County can receive high quality, no cost eviction assistance regardless of their immigration status. Since 2022, we've grown our team to 6 employees. We've recently been awarded our 2nd ever grant that we are using to bring social work support to all of our clients. And we just started our 501c3 that will hopefully be able to support the program in a long-term sustainable way. And we're just absolutely so thrilled to keep doing what we're doing. We're so excited to see how we will be growing in the future. And we're so stoked to keep providing high quality, culturally competent legal assistance to our neighbors.
So you've heard from Darkenia a little bit about why we needed this program. You've heard from me and Anne how we got started and what this intervention means. So what have we been doing over the last 2.5 years to try and build this program into what it needs to be? We've had 2.5 years now to figure out how, in a phrase that our whole team will recognize, to build the plane as we were flying it, to figure out what works, how we can find our clients, and how we can help them